Walt from StogieReview.com here with another one of these rolling reviews. And this time around, I'm smoking, this is actually kind of like a first impressions review because I've never had this cigar before. It is the Esteban Carreras Chupa Cabra. And up until just the other day, I'd never even heard of this cigar. I mean, I'm familiar with the Esteban Carrera brand, but this little firecracker was, relatively unknown to me. So I stopped in my local shop the other day, and it's a little shop that has grown tremendously in the short period of time that it's been open. So, the shop opens up, and the owner has a single walk-in humidor. And eventually, the humidor was slowly populated with more and more product, and eventually it got to the point where it was, packed to the seams, and it was going to burst. So the owner put in a second walk-in. So it's kind of awkward when you walk into the store and there's two separate walk-in humidors on either side of the store. And the one walk-in where these were is the more popular of the two walk-ins. And I walked in there looking for some of I can't think of the brand, but the little guerrilla warfares. And there are these little like 40 by 4 format cigars, these little, not even half Coronas, and they pack a really good punch, and for the money, they're a really good buy at like maybe $4.50 a stick. They're a bit potent for early in the morning, but they make for a really nice, powerful evening smoke if you're short on time. So I walked into the humidor looking to see if any more of those were in. Unfortunately, the cigars have been back ordered for a little while, and the shop owners since ran out. And I stopped in the first humidor looking for the little guerrilla warfares. They weren't in stock, so I started poking around to see what else he had available before I made my way over to the other humidor where the cigars where I wanted to purchase were located. So I noticed the Esteban Carreras Chupa Cabra sitting up high on a shelf, and at a price tag of about $4.90 per stick, I thought it was worthwhile to give them a shot. I was kind of curious how they compared to the guerrilla warfare, strength-wise, power, flavor, all that sort of thing. Because, let's face it, with a name like Chupa Cabra, this is not being advertised as, a mild or medium cigar. Picking it up and looking at the name and the branding and all that, it's, the presentation they're putting forth says, full-bodied stick. So here we are today. It's a Monday afternoon. I left work early to run some errands. I'm sort of racing home, and I've got a little window to fit a cigar in, and this kind of seemed perfect to smoke the Esteban Carreras Chupa Cabra and see what it was all about. Well, before we start talking about the flavor and body and power of the Esteban Carreras Chupa Cabra, let's first talk about the presentation. So it's got two bands. The first band is what you would expect to see on an Esteban Carreras product. I always thought it was a horse on the brand, but this one looks kind of hairy to be a horse, so maybe it's a galloping lion. But at any rate, the primary band is what you would expect to see from the Esteban Carreras brand. There is a secondary band which is a little bit more rugged, and it says Chupa Cabra on it. Now the secondary band, it feels different. It feels like it's a paper band, and obviously all bands are paper, but for instance, most cigars, you pick them up, they have a glossy sort of band. It's thin, and it sort of peels off without much trouble. Other cigars, such as the Drew Estate Liga Privada, has this more papery band, and when the band is glued to the cigar, it's almost as if the pectin seeps through the band, into the fibers and really bonds to the paper, and you can't get it off unless you start tearing it, and you wind up, tearing 3 or 4 or 5 times around the cigar before the band finally pops off. So the secondary band is a bit more rugged, it's got more texture to it, and it feels like that paper product that's going to be a real pain in the ass to get off the cigar. Again, you don't smoke the bands, and you wind up tearing them off anyway. It's just kind of an observation that the bands are a little bit different from from the primary to the secondary. Cigars are really dark, a little rugged looking. They've got some medium-sized veins. They are pronounced. They're not flattened. So as you handle the cigar, you can feel the veins will kind of stand out, you know, on the fingers. The coloring is really dark. The cap has a pigtail on it, and the foot, it isn't a shaggy foot where it's uncut, but it is the sort of foot where the wrapper is left long and it's just sort of bunched up and pushed down on the foot. I really dislike that, but for the sake of this little first impressions review, I did not cut it off. I usually do. So you know, I got a nice burst of wrapper flavor initially, and then the ash kind of went everywhere, as it always does with those messy things. But you know, as far as power goes, the cigar really hits you hard right off the bat. I was really taken by surprise at just how much power and spice and punch was in the cigar on that very first puff. Very fragrant, lots of smoke, nice and dense, just beautiful, just cigar lit, and just the skies parted, the sun shined on me, just all of the smoke just rolled right on through the cigar in that first puff, and it was just amazing. As I'm getting into the cigar a little bit, I'm finding that the smoke volume is starting to be lacking. I've had to grab my lighter 3 times now in this very short time frame because I'm about 99% sure that this cigar is out already, and I really haven't been talking all that long. So it's being a little bit of a pain in terms of smokability goes, but it's really good in the body and the power department. You know, there's just lots of punch behind it. It is everything that I anticipated with the name Chupa Cabra and the presentation. So good, big, bold, powerful cigar up front. It's leaving a lot to be desired in the construction standpoint or the smokability, as far as smokability is concerned. It is full-bodied. When it is burning and I'm getting, you know, smoke out of it, there is primary flavors are really dark. You know, you get a little bit of raisiny sort of sweetness. It's got this really heavy sort of campfire-esque smokiness to it in the through the sinus, which is really nice. It's got a little bit of you know, coffee flavor, some pepper that kind of lingers on the palate, and you know, blend that all together with being full-bodied with a nice punch behind the smoke, and it's a real winner if you like full-bodied cigars. But purely first impression at this point. I have a lot of cigar to smoke yet, so we'll see if it holds up, you know, and you know, is it worth the $4.90 per stick? Well, I suppose we're coming in on about the halfway point now, and you know, I was really surprised. I thought that paper band, you know, that papery sort of band was going to be a real pain in the ass to get off, that matte finish, but it popped off effortlessly. And I really wish other manufacturers could manage that. You know, there's nothing I hate more than driving down the road trying to smoke something, you know, small format, and you know, I start to tear the band just a little bit, and then you wind up, you know, spinning and spinning and tearing and tearing and tearing and tearing before finally it pops off. In this case, it popped off with ease, so that is awesome. Has nothing to do with the way the cigar smokes or anything. It's just kind of a bonus. I've had to hit it with the lighter a handful of times since I turned the camera off. It's I wouldn't say that it's a troublesome cigar to smoke. It just requires a little bit more patience than other cigars. You know, you have to keep on top of it. If you're sitting at home or you're sitting at a lounge, it really wouldn't be much of an issue to, you know, pick the lighter up every now and again and just whack it with the flame. If you're doing something that, you know, requires your attention, you're working with your hands, you're kind of busy, you're driving down the road, it can be more of a hassle. In terms of the flavor profile, it's more or less the same now as when it started, or the last time I turned the camera on. It's primarily these kind of deep, dark, earthy flavors. You know, you get that smoky, woodsy sort of campfire aroma. You get a little bit of sort of a raisin-like sweetness, some pepper, some spice. All in all, it's just a solid cigar that really hits the palate hard. Flavors linger for a little while, you know, a minute or two before they subside. The pepper seems to hold out the longest. So if you're a big fan of these big, bold, peppery cigars that linger, this is something that might be right up your alley. In terms of, you know, the Chupa Cabra versus the Guerrilla Warfare, you know, I'm not quite sure which way I lean. The Guerrilla Warfare definitely smokes better in terms of actually smoking the cigar, and has absolutely nothing to do with flavor. But on the flip side, the Guerrilla Warfare doesn't seem as flavorful. You know, the flavors of that cigar are a little more subdued. I mean, it's still a big, bold cigar with full body, but the Chupa Cabra seems to be a bit heavier-handed in as far as the power and the flavors go. So I like the way the Guerrilla Warfare smokes more than the Chupa Cabra, but I kind of like the flavor profile of the Chupa Cabra more than I do the Guerrilla Warfare. I think this is something that would go really well with a nice cup of coffee or a nice dark beer. I don't have either one handy, unfortunately. Not that I would be driving down the road drinking a nice dark beer, but you know, if I were sitting at home, those are the two beverages of choice that I would reach for with this particular cigar. I think that's gonna about do it. I hate to do the whole Cigar Aficionado inch review, but I'm getting really close to home, and the cigar's burning a little bit faster than I anticipated. I expected to get a little bit more smoke time out of it, but we're burning really quickly, and by the time I'm able to turn the camera back on, I think that I'm going to be finished the cigar. So with that said, I think that's going to do it for the review. Again, I hate that it's so damn short, but it kind of is what it is. I have to fit these reviews into the very slim time frame I have right now. In the next couple of months, hopefully things will open up and my schedule will become better. My wife's actually supposed to finish with school in December, and at this point I'm like counting down the days until I get some form of free time back. It has been a really hectic past couple of months, especially the last few weeks with the move, and my daughter starting preschool, and being my wife's last I forget what they call it, the last portion. It's not quite a semester, it's something else, but it's been really hectic. It just started. She's got volunteer work to do as she comes down to the end of the program, and just super busy. So I'm fitting these in as I can. So for $4.90, I think this is a pretty good buy and well worth picking up if you happen to stumble onto one at your local cigar shop. Give it a try. Hit the comments section below. Tell us what you think of the Esteban Carreras Chupa Cabra. And until next time, happy smoking. Take it easy.